All right, I'm going to call this meeting of the Plan Commission to order. And I would like to get a roll call if I can. And we do have a quorum, by the way.
Mr. Hawkins Ash. Mr. Fell.
Yes.
Mr. Fitch.
Here.
Mr. Hopkins. Mr. Otto. Ms. Stake.
Here.
Ms. Upa-Bant.
Here.
Thank you. Now I can declare a quorum. I was premature before. Do we have any changes to the agenda?
No.
The minutes from the special meeting of July 2nd, held upstairs. Do we have any changes to the minutes? Can I get a motion?
So move.
Moved by Ms. Stake, seconded by Ms. Upa-Bant. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The minutes are approved. Do we have any communications?
Just the one that was before you this evening, to do with the case that you'll be discussing.
And I will note for the record that that's a letter from a nearby resident of this subject properties.
Mm-hmm.
It's Viola Bradley Beal, expressing her opposition to the rezoning request. All right, I'm going to open a continued public hearing, plan case 2210 M13, a request by Howard Wakeland to rezone .689 acres at 906, 908, and 910 West Church from R2 single-family zoning to B2 neighborhood business arterial. And I've been asked, as a matter of course in the meetings, to look at, according to our bylaws, discuss briefly the process that the Plan Commission is required to follow. The petitioner will outline his case and present evidence. Other proponents may present evidence. Opponents then will present evidence, and those with a material interest in the properties may ask questions directly to the petitioner through the chair of the commission. Other people may be heard. Staff may make additional comments. The petitioner may rebut and present a summary of his or her petition. Then the Plan Commission will discuss the case and may vote on the case. So if the petitioner has anything to say to us, Mr. Wakeland, that you haven't said before, or if you'd like to address this, come forward.
Are there going to be some comments from other folks before me?
No, sir. You're the petitioner, and you present your request and evidence first.
There's going to be no other comments?
I do not know. There may be after your.
I'd like to be able to address them if there's objections,
Oh, you absolutely will have a chance to speak again after others have spoken.
Well, we almost got enough for a bridge. I don't know, got a fifth player, so somebody's gonna have to do something, make the drinks or whatever, while we play cards, I guess. All right, thank you. As you all know, I'm Howard Wakeland. I really don't know how to intelligently address this tonight because you all know this by heart. You know the territory, you know us, you know our reputation or our lack of reputation. We've been here. I think Rebecca probably would have the best record on this. I tried to call you the other day to see if you had a date line on how long this thing's been going on and how many times we've met and how many times oh, I don't want it right now, please. But as my best knowledge, I think we've been at it since 2005, I think. A long time. 2008, this committee approved, they had an action of approving our request to make the entire area, which we originally had, I think it was, in that case, actually a B3U. I think this committee actually approved a B3U recommendation for the city, and I think that was in 2008, as I recall. And as you know, we've had a couple of call-offs Robert had to call me one afternoon about 4 o'clock and said, you know, we got some problems tonight. Would you mind putting it off? So we put that one off for another meeting or whatever. And then we had a meeting, a month ago or whatever. And it looked like it was going to be a tie, although I don't think any votes were ever really cast. And so and they asked, would I mind waiting? And well, here we are again. We got four people again. Okay. What is important about this case? You may say you don't believe me, but to us, this is not life and death. If we get it, it will help us. How will it help us? Because we think we can clear up some of the properties on the southeast corner of University and Lincoln, which would help us, I think, in seeking rezoning for that area. That's our long-term goal, is the southeast corner of University and Lincoln. And whether we get a recommendation here tonight or not, we will go ahead with that plan request. What are you saying, though, to people who are not in this room? To anybody who's thinking of investing in Urbana, or any business person who's thinking about trying to change the nature of an area, you're saying you're going to have trouble. And you're saying that it doesn't meet with what was recommended in this very thick document, which is interesting because two of you were on that commission somewhere in one of the committees or whatever, and there was a third member of this group that was on that committee. It was a long-term study, very long-term study. And they had a lot of people sign off on it, the water company, the power company, the Champaign County Business Bureau or whatever. I'm messing that name up, but nevertheless, there was a very widespread, very deep, very thorough look at what Urbana wanted to do. Now, according to that, and I'm a little maybe over-prepared. Let's see here. Let me get over here. See if I can get them out of here. Wow. Well, I'm having a little bit of fun here. Okay. Yeah, just give each one of them one, please. Okay. Here, this one too. I'll give them one of each. Gotta have a lot of paper. All right. Well, I thought it was thoroughly prepared, but nevertheless, I still don't seem to have all the copies. Maybe I've got it over here. Okay. All right, if you look, and these are old maps. You've seen them before. Nothing new, really. More a reminder than anything else. If you take a look at map 3, which was photocopied out of this long-term plan, you'll see here that the area we're talking about tonight, it says there, promote community business that can serve university population and immediate neighborhood. And that is in the, well, yes. And Church Street goes along the south side of the area that we own, okay? But that was the recommendation for the land use on the long-term zoning study. Then on the other handout that I just gave you, and I put a little black ring around it, you'll see what has happened since then, and I've got to study to be sure I'm in the right place here, that along Church Street, we haven't had anything change there. However, to the south, you see the industrial zoning, which has been there for a long time. And then to the north, there has been, and I have a color chart if you want to look at it, but that color chart is, as I look at it, I believe it says in B, I think that's a B2 neighborhood business arterial. Now, let me take a look at that pink one again. Do you think that's a B1 now or not?
Looks like a B1 to me.
B1, you think?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so that was changed to a B1, and they do have a little bit of a commercial center in there. And then north of that, you see the brown, or pardon me, the eyes brown, okay, which is an R4 medium-density multiple family residential. And they built an apartment there. And then on the other side of the street, on the corner of Fairview and Lincoln, they have another apartment complex in there that's been reworked, remodeled, whatever. And that is also an R4 as I understand it. It could be an R5, but I think it's an R4, I think. Now you come down to the Carl Hospital area, and there have been many changes down there, but you'll see a mass of blue there along Church Street. I suspicion that those 5 on the south side of Church Street are now blue, but I don't know that. I don't know what the recent changes on zoning are, and I think there are changes that have been made that are not on the map, which I purchased today. I also believe, but I am not sure, that Carl has bought some properties north of, of Church Street in that next block, but I am unaware of whether that's the case or not. Okay? So that we have been sandwiched is what's happened. And to the north, we have business, we're apartments. To the south, we have industrial. And yet we are not allowed up to this point to do anything else with that land that we have there. What we probably should have done was not taking care of the houses. Just let them run down and get terrible. So bad that the city would come to us and say, why don't you knock these houses down? Which they occasionally do. But what are we saying to new buyers who are looking at this case? And I say anyone on the west side of Urbana, if you're thinking about investing over there, you better think twice unless you have the zoning already in place. And in our own business, and I've said this before, we will not buy anything east of Lincoln in Urbana unless it's something that is contiguously connected to something that we already own. Other than that, we will buy nothing to the east of Lincoln. That's a business decision on our part. The fact that we're asking for a B2, we originally started out B3U, which would be nice, but it's not needed. We have never thought about a 10-story or a 12-story or an 8-story or a 5-story building on that property. In fact, and I think I shared this with you the last time, our plan right now is to build no apartment buildings for the next 2 years. We are wanting to see what is going to happen in Champaign. And I'm not telling you anything you don't know. The last I heard, there's 5 new skyscrapers going up over there. Could be 4. And within, we have a new complex going up on University north of south of the property we're talking about here. You've been through this so many times, I don't want to bore you because, frankly, most of you know as much about the property as I do. You say, why are we so interested in this property? Well, when we bought it, the promise for zoning looked a lot greater than it looks now. So what we have decided to do, and you're seeing it tonight, we're trying to say, well, will you approve a part of it for zoning? Only that part which we own 100% of, and we think we can get started in that area. But again, we never know for sure what's going to happen, like with this zoning. If we don't get the zoning, we will move on. We'll move on to something else. At this point in time, it could be one of several things. Perhaps out of town as opposed to in town. That's a possibility. Right now, we're spending an awful lot of time. I think most of you are aware, and I made this statement the last time, and it's true. We pay 2/3 as much tax annually as Carl would if they were going to be taxed. So we have been a tax-bearing group for the city of Urbana and the others who are caught in that property tax. At least with the university, we have a first-class rating as a housing institution. We take care of our apartments. Our students, for whatever reason, behave themselves. We don't have Saturday parties. We don't have beer parties. We don't have the fraternity moving in to our fraternities over the weekend. We have none of that. Even the crime record in the area that we have is almost zero, but I think we did have some kind of a incident here a few weeks ago. I think it was on the street, never in our buildings. But the buildings and the properties we own, we're in every day with one of our employees or ourselves. I don't know what has or is going to happen with Carl, but across the street and slightly more south, they've been very intense with the zoning that they have received. And my understanding is they own several of the houses across the street from us, and I think it's only a matter of time until they will probably be wanting to do something there, but I have not checked. I do not know. We have, in case, I think I said this before, but I'll say it again. Before we went in there, there was a crack house. at 705 North Lincoln. Very bad crack house, in fact. We tore it down, got rid of it. The territory behind it, we removed over 100 scrub trees because it was so laced with drug paraphernalia and people who had been exchanging drugs in that area. Insofar as we know, that is totally and completely cleaned up. We had 2 houses that the drug people got into before we bought them, and we straightened both of those up and remodeled on the inside. I don't think we can be criticized for being poor citizens. The thing that, well, I think we're a little bit thrown. I don't blame all of us, but this publication led us to believe that we should do something up there, that we could do something up there. And on the west side of Urbana, I don't think very many of the recommendations that were in here have been honored. I don't think. I stand to be corrected on that. But I think the promises that were made or the direction that was pointed out did not happen over there along Lincoln Avenue, north, south, or anywhere else. Now, there's been a little bit of change down in South Lincoln, and it sounds to me like it's been very intelligently done. So I'm happy to see that. I don't know. I just don't want to waste your time. I thank you for coming out again. If you've got any questions, I'll sure try to answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Wakeland. Any questions for Mr. Wakeland? I think we're good. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. I'll gather my stuff and get it out of your way.
Take your time. Is there anybody else who would like to present evidence in favor of Mr. Wakeland's petition? Is there anybody who's not in favor of Mr. Wakeland's petition who would like to speak to the Plan Commission? Hello?
Good afternoon.
Hey. It's hard to tell. If you could just state your name for the TV cameras.
Viola Bradley Bias.
Bias.
I had to bribe the warden into letting me off. I'm against the redevelopment, the rezoning of, not redevelopment, rezoning of the neighborhood. When I moved there, it was a friendly neighborhood. Everybody knew everybody, and yeah, we had some drug problems, but all of us weren't on drugs, and all of us weren't for it. We would call the police to try to get it straightened out, and eventually most of them moved. Even though he says there's not drugs, there's drug in every neighborhood, so I don't go with that. But I do have a problem with him putting that building behind me. I'm at 903 West Hill Street. He put that building behind me, my property zone, my property value will go down. And regardless of what he said, I had someone come out and appraise my property. And when he put that building back there, it's going to go down. The value of my house is going to go down. Everything I've heard him say is about what I want, what we want, what he wants, more than he lives in this city. And even though we don't pay as much taxes as he do, we still pay our taxes. We have to pay taxes just like everybody else. He chose to buy those houses. He had people in those houses. So he says he's in there every day. I can't see it because right now in my backyard, he has a tree that the limb fell out, been like that a month, and it's laying like in between the branches. Next big wind come along, it's gonna fall. And I told his lawn person about it. Nothing's been done about it for a month. So, you know, he's talking about, all he's trying to do is prepare for his family and what his family wants. Other people in this world have families. People live in Urbana. I moved here because I thought it was a safe place to raise my kids. I raised my kids in that house. It's my house. I don't want it to go down. I keep it up. I keep my yard up. If something go wrong with it, I fix it. I have a right to live in peace. I don't have to wake up with the noise behind me from his equipment and stuff. I do that every morning. I work for the Department of Corrections. I go to work at 4:30 in the morning. Sometimes I don't get off till 8 o'clock at night, and that's the majority of the time. Sometimes I go to work at 9 o'clock at night and don't get off till 6 o'clock in the morning. I need to sleep. And while I'm doing this work, I'm fighting cancer. I do not need that racket behind me, and it's not necessary. He can go somewhere else and find a place that is not in a neighborhood. Why tear down a neighborhood? Up to you and you, we're trying to upbuild the neighborhood. I have grandkids. I have a grandson starting at U of I this year. Raised him right in that neighborhood. I have another grandson that's a Navy SEAL. Raised him in that neighborhood, in that house. So everybody in that neighborhood is not bad, regardless of what he thinks or how he feels. We're raising families there. We live in there. Everybody knows everybody. When we have a problem, we call the police. In fact, a lot of them come and knock on my door because I wear a badge. And I'm like, well, call the police. Well, Ms. Baez, you are the police. Well, yeah, but not here. So, you know, don't just put that rezone my land just because he wants it. It's all about what he wants. He has enough property around here in Urbana. If he wants to go. Somebody else will take his spot. Don't criticize and hurt all of us because of one person. That's all I'm asking.
Do you have anything further, Tad?
No.
Do any of the commissioners have questions, Ms. Pies? No? Ms. Stake?
I guess just want to say that I went through your neighborhood, and I found it a very nice neighborhood, and I agree with you that we should take care of your neighborhood.
We try.
Yeah.
If the neighbor's not keeping his
You
place.
take care of it, but, I mean, we should,
But that don't mean we have to rezone it. That doesn't
no,
mean.
we don't have to
Is that a
rezone it.
question,
We
Ms.
shouldn't rezone it.
Let's stick to questions at this point.
Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Myers?
Is it okay if I ask a question? You mentioned earlier that you had an appraiser take a look at the house. Do you have anything that you could provide in writing?
I didn't bring it with me. I just
Okay.
left work.
Okay.
And you know, if you work in the prison, you can only take in there what you're supposed to.
Yeah, right. Do you have anything that you
I'm
want to
saying-
turn in at some point?
If necessary.
Okay, it's up to you, but I just wanted to ask that question because it's, if someone has some sort of evidence, some written evidence to turn in, it's sometimes helpful for the record.
Okay. My house is not run down. In the last 5, 10 years, I've redid the electrical work. I redid the plumbing. I redid the siding. I put a central air in it. I'm getting ready to put another roof on it. So it's not a rundown place. I'm taking care of it. And that's what you expect of me. That's what I expect of me, because I like to live in a decent place. Regardless if the neighborhood is old or new, I live there and I want to take care of it.
All right, if you have nothing further, thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else who is not in favor of Mr. Wakeland's petition would like to address the Plan Commission? No. You'll have a chance to speak in just a minute. Thank you, and if you could state your name and write it. Yeah. Thanks.
My name is Susan Taylor, and I live at 606 West Michigan Avenue in Urbana, and I consider myself part of the Urbana neighborhood. I'm south of University Avenue, but I use Lincoln Avenue frequently, and I go up and down and I look at my neighbors along the way. And I just want to comment that I've been watching the neighborhood for 50 years, and I've seen a lot of changes, as anybody else has seen in the last 10 or 20 years. It doesn't have to be 50. And I think that there's a distinction still in the mind of many Champaign-Urbana residents that, I don't mean to tread on any toes, but that Urbana is more residentially oriented than Champaign, and that one of the reasons that people choose Urbana is that it's a residential community rather than an industrial one, which was where the train came by. So the petitioner tonight has requested the rezoning from R2 single-family residential to B2 neighborhood business arterial of an L-shaped configuration now of 0.689 acres, 1 block north of the very busy intersection of University Avenue and Lincoln Avenue, which has a good deal of traffic coming off from I-74. The 0.69 acre L-shape area, as I see it on a map from our discussions in March, and the map that I refer to is Exhibit B, is the clearest one for me, the existing zoning map, which was prepared for that March meeting. And as I see it, it includes, as I saw it today, or see it today, or whatever the right word is, there are 3 single-story rental houses on West Hill Street. They're 909, 907, and 905 West Hill Street that are owned by the petitioner. And to the south of that, currently, it's open space. That's sort of an interior vacant lot on this map that I'm using, which is colorful and easy for me to understand and to relate to. And the area that's cross-hatched on the map is vacant, so that this green grass here and this vacant area, except for vegetation on the borders thereof and around the houses as they exist, it's a cool neighborhood. I mean, it's been pretty hot, and the single-story houses that are there seem to be along West Hill Street, seem to be sort of shaded, and then this cul-de-sac here, which is not being up for rezoning, but this is neighborhood with houses and trees. And on this side, the north side of West Hill Street, is a two-story house that looks very lived in and has children's toys out in front, and it's quite a handsome thing. And I took a look this way and looked across the street, and since these are all single-story, it sort of adds pizzazz to the street to have this two-story house there. Anyway, the whole street was quiet. There were a couple of cars that came and went, but I would be happy to live there, I think, as was stated by my predecessor. Anyway, I wanted to point out that this area it's a historic neighborhood. It's historically part of Urbana, and the owners outside the 0.689 area, who are at 903 West Hill and 703 North Lincoln Avenue, have been with members of their families for as many as 3 generations, and we just heard that. And they've been in opposition, as I can certainly understand, to a proposed zoning change that would change it from R2 single-family residential to B2 neighborhood business arterial. And we have been working with this proposal, or variations thereof, for quite a while. And I think the fact that the Urbana City Council considered the recommendation that was passed on to it in March, and on the basis of the LaSalle Street criteria as reflected in the memo from Rebecca, dated March, my glasses off, 15th, 13th, sorry, March 15th, I'll just mention 3 of the LaSalle Street criteria, but it seems to me that the lead in on this one, where page 5 of this memo, in the case of the LaSalle National Bank versus the County of Cook, parenthesis, the LaSalle case, the Illinois Supreme Court developed a list of factors that are paramount in evaluating the legal validity of a zoning classification for a particular property. And the first one here, and I'm not going to go through the whole business, but number 1, the existing land uses and zoning of the nearby property. And then in italics, this factor relates to the degree to which the existing and proposed zoning districts are compatible with existing land uses and land use regulations in the immediate area. And then the next sentence, the existing zoning is compatible with the single-family residential neighborhood to the east, north, and west of the subject lots. There's a whole page on this. The second one, the extent to which property values are diminished by the restrictions of the ordinance. Italics. This is the difference in the value of the property as R2, single-family residential, and the value it would have if it were rezoned to B2, neighborhood business arterial. The last paragraph in that section, it should be noted that City Planning Division staff are not qualified as professional appraisers, and that a professional appraiser has not been consulted regarding the impact of zoning on the value of the property. Therefore, any discussion pertaining to specific property values should be considered speculative. This is from your report. Then the fourth one, and I think this is the last one that I wanted to draw your attention to, the relative gain to the public as compared to the hardship imposed on the individual property owner. The existing R2 single-family residential zoning is intended to provide areas for single-family detached dwellings at a low density. The restrictions inherent in having the whole block zoned R2, read that again. The restrictions inherent in having the whole block zoned R2 offer protection for any properties in the block that are in single-family residential use. This is particularly relevant for the two properties not owned by the petitioner. And one of the two owners is here tonight and has spoken. The other one has been here, and her son has also been here. The current zoning also offers some protection to the single-family neighborhood west of the subject properties, as shown on this map. I think the LaSalle criteria are what I started with. They are relevant to the legal aspects of a zoning classification, and I think they're paramount in the discussion of this case. Thank you.
Any questions, Ms. Taylor? Nope.
I think my
Thank you for your
question is.
testimony.
Thank you very much.
Keep bringing that. Anyone else not in favor of the petitioner's request wish to speak to the Plan Commission? Oh, okay. Okay, anyone else before Mr. Wakeland gets a chance to address this again? You want to address on this case? That will be in audience participation after this case is. Oh, okay, yeah. Well, if you want to be heard on this case.
My name is Carol McCusick, and I'm at 1907 North Cunningham.
Are you going to address this in regard to this case, Ms. McCusick?
Yes. I don't see that it talks about there being two properties that are not owned by the petitioner.
Yeah.
I only saw that the 903 is identified. Where does the
The other one is, I think, 705, 703. So it's in the crook of the L, right adjacent to 701 and backing up to 906. That's also not owned by Mr. Wake.
where does the material tell you that, though?
I don't know, many of these have stated that. In this case, since they're not part of the rezoning request, I guess that's the reason why it's not brought into this again. But actually, they are addressed in discussion of the related plan cases that we have heard before. On page 2.
Yes?
It talks about at the public hearing, the owner of 703 North Lincoln addressed us, expressed opposition at that time.
Okay, thank you.
And then it's again on 703 is mentioned on page 5.
Okay.
Uh,
So So that was one question. Let's see.
Which, talking about the buffering that would be required between Mr. Wakeland's property and the property at 703.
Okay. Can you, is there any difference between what the Plan Commission went against in March and what's before you now?
Yes, this is a smaller area. It's an area that's contiguous and does not urge. Earlier, we also considered the big vacant lot in the middle, and I think also the property on the properties. Let me get the addresses here. Well, we've considered all different aspects of this. So the most recent one, the properties 909, 907, 905 West Hill, and 707 West Hill, as well as 705 North Lincoln, were also a part of that request. Earlier, we approved a rezone of the whole block, which was not approved by the City Council.
Okay. I'm probably not following well enough to ask a question about that then. I did notice when you put in Wakeland rezoning in the search engine for the city, you don't really get all of these. I don't think you get all these events, so that it's not like you can count on that being a complete picture.
I don't know about that, but they're mentioned in the plan case, so, you know. And I'm sure that if you were to contact city staff, they'd be happy to provide you any information that you would like.
What would be a question for Mr. Wakeland would be, what would be the intention for the corner, is it southeast corner of Lincoln and University?
You're talking about the 701 lot?
If he moves
Well, Mr. Wakeland has stated that he intends to move his office and attendant shop-related activities onto this parcel.
So what was he going to do? What was he going to do? The public, are they allowed to ask what he's planning to do on the southeast corner of Lincoln and University?
Southeast corner of Lincoln and University. I don't think that that's not really germane to this case, in my opinion. He could, in other words, by right, he can do any of the permitted uses that are listed in the zoning ordinance for that property, which is probably B3, which would be general business. I do have the zoning map there, actually.
Oh, one point, I guess, that would be against.
Yes, those properties are largely general business at Lincoln and University.
The development that was going to be, it was supposed to be so large above, like above Beckman, or like behind where Durst is, that was before City Council. It sounds like a big student megalopolis and real slick kind of low building, and of course, like everything's like that. So, that core, I would kind of echo the on the sentiment basis, Susan and the other petitioner.
All right.
Thank you.
Did anyone have any questions for Ms. McCusick? No? All right, thank you for your testimony. And now, if the staff, do you have anything that you care to add before we let Mr. Wakeland speak again?
You want me again?
Well, you get a chance to wrap up your petition and rebut any points that you've heard.
Okay. With regard to my own, I don't wish to get into any personal kind of infrastructure, but I think there's a few things might be worthy of mentioning. I first contacted her about buying her property 8 or 10 years ago, about of that time. Now, when you offer somebody a price for their property, it doesn't mean you're trying to kick them off of that property. It's what's called a business relationship. You make an offer, and they accept or they don't. Well, I made an offer of paying $125,000 for her house either 8 or 10 years ago. I have to go back to my file and look. At that time, I think the property was probably worth around $70,000. That's my estimate, okay? My estimate is her property is now probably worth $80,000, somewhere in that vicinity. I could be wrong, but that's my estimate. That promise of $125,000 stayed in place until I think it was this spring that I have wrote her. It might have been last fall, but either last fall or this spring, I wrote her and I said, look, we're involved in some other things now, and I have set that $125,000 to the side for you. And I said, we're not going to be able to continue with that promise, so I withdrew that offer. It was either this spring or last fall. And I didn't make any other offer after that. I mean, it had to become a tender issue with her. I didn't want to obsess it anymore. But never in all of this talk have we ever, quote, going to kick her off of her property. Nobody does that. You can't do that in America. So I think maybe my letter was not well timed. Then there was another day, about 4 years ago, something like that, where she had arranged a meeting for us with her lawyer. And I was under the impression that there was going to be some kind of a deal cut. Well, she didn't show up for the meeting. I showed up for the meeting. The lawyer showed up for the meeting. And I called him several times. He said, well, no, apparently she lost interest. So at one time, it wasn't as hard as what you're hearing now. So I backed off of her property, and I haven't had any intelligent discussion with her, or in writing, or in by voice, since this thing started earlier this year, or at least earlier this year. So the other thing that I would like to point out, in this book, when they recommended these zoning areas, they didn't guarantee anyone that their property might not be rezoned. In fact, the whole matter was they were telling people we're planning to rezone your area in many cases. So this business that they don't want it to be rezoned is not covered in this booklet here. And whether they want to rezone or not, I've tried to follow what the city recommended. Okay, so that's where we are. However, with Viola's case, we're not going to bother her. She can do what she wants with her property. Future zoning, I'm not going to make any promises about it. But in this case, we have tried to talk about 4 properties we own. Nobody else owns them. We own them. And it should be fairly easy for you to try to come to some kind of a conclusion whether you believe that's a right of ours or not. The second person speaking tonight mentioned a number of things that I just a little hard to respond, because I was trying to say, well, how do I respond to that? But she was up on Hill Street talking about properties up there, which are not in this packet tonight. and other properties north of this strip that we're talking about, and were not in consideration of our request tonight. Whatever happens tonight will provide us with some guidance as to where we ought to go. And I don't want to be any stronger than that. Contrary to what you may think, we have not been out there hassling the neighbors. The branch that fell over the fence, I've never heard about this before. It could well have happened. It might still be there, but we have 8 people working for us, and I don't check with them every day to see if this or that has happened. I don't know. Main thing, I want to stay away from any personal attacks or anything like that. It's not worth it. So that's it. If you got a question on that, I'd be happy to answer.
Any questions?
I do.
Ms. Dick?
Why do you want so many properties?
Why do we own so many properties? I have 2 children who were born, educated, and raised in Urbana. And they want to make a living in Urbana. And you know what's worrying them right now? They don't work for the university. They don't work for the light company. They don't work for the water company. They don't have any retirement built in automatically. And they are out there in private lives trying to make a living, okay? When you're in that position and you know that retirement's going to come, you're trying to do whatever you possibly can to guarantee it in the future that you're going to have some way of living. That's the way they're living now. And they own 80% of our firm. And that's why we continue to try to improve things. So that if you're in the business world and you don't have an automatic retirement, you look at life a lot differently than when you do have it. Believe me, I know. I've got a retirement. I don't need it.
Okay. Well, another thing I'd like to know is why don't you build more affordable housing in there? That's what we really need.
Because it depends upon how you define affordable housing. Boy, this is dangerous for me to say. We are of the opinion you've got too much low-cost housing in Urbana already. If we take the average salary of the average family in this town, Urbana, it's gone down over the last 20 years, virtually every year. Why? Those people are moving to St. Joe, or to Philo, or to Savoy, or to Rantoul, or wherever. And your firemen, they don't live in Urbana anymore. Your policemen, a lot of them don't live in Urbana anymore. And you go down the line, you have a lot of city workers who do not live in this town. Why? Because they find easier, better, more comfortable housing somewhere else for an equal price to what you would pay in Urbana. And so there is no future for us or my children to build, quote, affordable housing in Urbana. I know I've just cut my throat, and I understand that, but that's what has been happening in Urbana.
We need it, though.
Do you have any further questions? Any?
No.
No? Anything further, Mr. Wing?
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. I think it's appropriate right now, Ms. Upavan.
Rebecca, can you explain, this is the only way that property zoning can change, is for property owner to ask? There's no, I should know this, but I'm sitting here and I'm puzzled. There's no plan for the city to move towards making property zoning conform to the long-range plan. It's got to be requested by the property owner, is that right? Do you see where I'm going with that?
I'd say the vast majority of the time it's at the initiative of the property owner. Occasionally, you'll find that cities will proactively rezone property. For example, we had we divided the industrial zoning district in two, to a heavy industrial and a light industrial.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
And so the city rezoned over 100 properties in that case.
That's right.
Also in East Urbana, probably about 3 or 4 years ago, 4 years ago maybe, we did a proactive rezoning program to bring the zoning more in line with the uses in the neighborhood and the comprehensive plan, and that involved over 100 properties too. But those are unusual circumstances. I would say 95% of the time it's at the initiative or request of the property owner.
And how binding is the long-range plan?
It's the official policy guide. It doesn't dictate how we rezone properties, but there was a lot of thought that went into it. There was a lot of consideration, a lot of buy-in. We held public meetings, and it was approved by our city council as the official land use policy. And having said that, there may be times when conditions have changed since the plan is wrote. Occasionally you'll see that. There may be specific considerations that they weren't able to take into account when the plan was written because they didn't have property appraisals at the time. Maybe the market conditions were different. So it is true that sometimes you deviate from a comprehensive plan, but it's still the official policy guide and should have a serious weight.
Okay. I'm going to ask one more question.
Sure.
Just
You're on a
be
roll.
on the edge. Is the city held liable if the Plan Commission or the City Council were to deny a request that would bring property in line with the comp plan? I mean, it seems like an oxymoron here to turn down a property owner who's asking to do what the comp plan calls for.
I think that if a recommendation goes against the comprehensive plan, the Plan Commission should articulate findings about why in this case the facts don't support the recommendation for that rezoning. I do think there are certain expectations that property owners have in terms of the comprehensive plan. They rely upon that. Well, there are certain expectations with zoning too. So, I mean, zoning does dictate, that is binding. The comprehensive plan is more about a policy about aspirations and its official policies. But I would say the important thing is to go by the LaSalle case criteria and to use that as your guide and to adopt or modify the findings that are in the staff report and use that as your guide for what you would recommend for the City Council.
Thank you, that's helpful.
Any other questions for staff? I do have one question regarding 703 North Lincoln. In the past, I believe the Connerlys own that property, and in the past they have come and expressed opposition to various configurations that were proposed. Have you had contact with them regarding this configuration?
No, we did hand deliver a letter this week to make sure that both Mrs. Bradley Bias and the Connerlys did know about this meeting tonight, because as you know from our last meeting, the original notice that went out was now quite a while ago. So I did update the sign that's on the property to state the meeting tonight, and we hand delivered letters to both of those two property owners earlier this week, and we have not heard from the Connerlys.
Okay, thank you. All right, well, I guess we're ready for close the public hearing, the public input portion, and go for discussion, comments, et cetera. Ms. Stake?
Well, I do want to talk about Urbana's comprehensive plan, because it states clearly in that plan that the goal is to preserve residential neighborhoods. And Urbana has a very established neighborhood of Lincoln. right there off Lincoln Avenue. And it includes many homes in this area. This is a very nice neighborhood, and it has homes, and also has King School and King Park are in this area we're talking about now. Urbana does need affordable housing for students and other people coming to Urbana. Residential housing near the campus and near the school and the park are now available, but they won't be if we change this to business. Urbana needs to save the residential space for homes so families have affordable housing. For now, from the north, expansion of Carl Hospital will not encroach on the community because of an agreement with the city of Urbana. So Urbana really needs more affordable housing as indicated in the comprehensive plan. Clearly, the goal is to preserve residential neighborhoods, and that's in the plan, and that's in the comprehensive plan. That's what they say. So I know they say other things, but that's the thing I looked at carefully. And I think that we should go with that.
Any other thoughts? Mr. Feld?
First of all, I do have to say I don't agree with everything that Mr. Wakeland says, but I do agree with many of his points. I think that any developer or business owner has an expectation when he looks at the comprehensive plan that if he buys a chunk of ground that we say has the ability to be rezoned to business, he has every right to expect that we'll rezone it to business when the time comes and it's appropriate. In addition, I think that with all the comments that were made with the petitioner's last request that we turned down, he's addressed, I think, all of those concerns with this request, in that there really will be, I think, a significant buffer between the property he wants to be rezoned and the residences. There's a setback requirement that he has to maintain. There's also a screening requirement when he abuts a residential use, which he will all the way around. So I assume there'll be a fence all the way around. So I think the impact on the remaining two properties he doesn't own will be minimal. And in addition to that, he's now restricted himself to access only off of Church Street. He can't access this property any other way from what he's requesting. So there'll be no traffic or truck impact on the properties that aren't being rezoned. I think he's done everything we've asked him to do. And I think he has every right to expect that we should essentially be good to our word, because we pretty much told him if he addressed these issues, we'd agree with him. And he's addressed these issues. So that's it.
Ms. Uberban?
Well, I would agree with the points that Andrew just made, and further, it seems, I mean, I sat in on a lot of the comprehensive plan discussion. If we were to turn this down, I think we need to amend the comprehensive plan. I mean, it just, either the comprehensive plan is the overarching document or it's not. I just don't understand how we could possibly not approve this. But I felt that way earlier, so.
Well, see, there's,
Mistake.
these two things don't go together very well, I know. But I read the comprehensive plan also. But I picked out what I liked, which was that the goal is to preserve the residential neighborhoods. And this is not going to preserve the residential neighborhoods if we put business in there, right in there with.
But that's what the map shows.
I know, but you read. So there are two things. You can take one and I'll take the other. I really think that it's very bad to do this, because we do need housing so badly, and that you got in your when you read your, I should have brought that along, but anyhow, we had,
It's
have-
one of the objectives. Oh,
we have.
it is on.
We
Yeah.
have information. We have information in about our work. And in that, they make a big issue of how important it is to have affordable housing. Affordable housing is very important in this community. Very, very important in this community. And you don't always go by the comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan was made a long time ago, and sometimes we change it. And sometimes we see that this is better than what the comprehensive plan said at that time. But we do need affordable housing for students and other people. It's really sad to think that we would take that space, which is close to the university and close to the school and King Park and so forth, and then give it away to business. And businesses, we don't need that much business. Sure, it's nice to have more money, and I know that's what Mr. Wakeland wants, is a lot more money, but sometimes we should think of everybody, not just the richest.
Anything further? Mr. Fell? Did you start to say something?
No, I'm not going to say anything.
Bernadine, I hear what you're saying, and that residential housing is extremely important. Another major objective of the plan is infill redevelopment, which is what Mr. Wakeland is talking about here. I also agree with Ms. Upabant and Mr. Fell that the map is more specific than the objectives, and that the future land use map, in fact, the little line that says promote community business that can serve university population and immediate neighborhoods is pointing right at one of the properties that Mr. Wakeland is asking to rezone. So, I think that the Plan Commission at least has an obligation to follow the comprehensive plan. I think the land use map controls it for me, and then the city council can consider it on other grounds if they want. But are we ready for a motion?
You didn't get to do it last time.
I'll move that we move plan case number 2210-M-13 to the city council with a recommendation for approval. Is that worded
second.
correctly?
Motion by Mr. Fell, seconded by Ms. Upabant. And then can I get a roll call when you're ready?
Mr. Fell?
Yes.
Mr. Fitch?
Yes.
Ms. Stake?
No, it's
Ms. Upabant?
Yes.
pure greed.
Bernadine, please.
Can't believe it.
That motion will be forwarded to the city council. And when do you have any idea when that case will come up?
We just learned about a cancellation of a city council meeting upcoming. So this will be heard at the Monday, August 19th, city council meeting.
Monday, August 19th. That's a ways off. All right, well, getting back to the agenda then, thank you for your input. We don't have any old business. We don't have any new public hearings. No new business. Audience participation. Would anybody in the audience like to address the Plan Commission on anything other than the case that we just concluded?
I would like to thank you for coming and listening to me again.
Ms. McCusick, I think I remember you from a few minutes ago, so you can.
Okay. Carol McCusick, 1907 North Cunningham. I don't think that,
Your mic is kind of weird. Yeah, thank you.
I was going to check again, but at the Plan Commission page, they have the 2005 revision of the bylaws, and I understood that you did an annual review of them, and I was going to say that I guess if it says would it always be clear that you reviewed them and decided not to change them, and that there is no like more recent one up that exists that's not up, rather?
If there were any changes to the bylaws, it would be a Plan Commission case and a City Council case as well. As a matter of fact, city staff has begun to look at the bylaws, and so we expect in not too far distant future that we will be opening a Plan Commission case to look at the bylaws. And maybe you might want to address some of the activities that you'll be undertaking in reviewing those.
One of the things we're doing is make sure we're incorporating all the recent court cases in the last few years in terms of procedures for public meetings and public hearings, and making sure the language is consistent with procedures from other boards and commissions that are pertinent, that also affect people's property rights. And those are the things that come to mind right away.
So the ones that are
The ones online are the bylaws.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Let's see, staff report.
A few items quickly. At Monday's City Council meeting, a man by the name of Tyler Fitch was appointed chair of the Plan Commission. And also, you'll notice tonight, obviously, that Michael Pollack is not meeting and not chairing the commission for the first time, other than a few absences for many, many years. Michael Pollack chose not to be reappointed to the Plan Commission after serving for many years. And if I could just add that Michael was, I think, a fantastic chair, wonderful service to the community of Urbana, expertly ran the meetings. I think people uniformly told me that they appreciated, even when a recommendation of this body didn't go in a particular direction that someone wanted. I think everyone I spoke to have said they felt like that was a fair proceeding, and they recognized that, and I recognize that. We all recognize that. So we'd like to thank Michael Pollack for his service to the community. In fact, next week we're going to be holding a luncheon, and everyone here is invited. I think we've emailed you the time and date of when that will be held, so we hope that you can attend. But if you haven't had a chance to let us know, please feel free to let Terry know after the meeting tonight.
I would like to add to that I mentioned to Robert, I think would like to see the City Council pass a resolution of thanks to Mr. Pollack, not only for his service on this, but for his service on the City Council.
Right.
Prior.
Right.
Michael Pollack Day, that's taking it too far.
All right.
He'll see that in a minute. Yeah. Honorary Street, yeah, there you go. No study session tonight.
Can I mention
one more thing?
Yeah, a couple of other things. Real quickly, there's a Citizen Planners Workshop that we're in the early stages of preparing for this October. We're looking at October 3rd, 10th, or 17th. At least one of those dates is on a Thursday night, so I'm working with the organizer at Champaign County Regional Planning Commission on the specific date of when the workshop would be. I don't know if you all attended the last one, but it was held in the Illinois Union. We had speakers come from the out of town, make presentations on Plan Commission basics and then kind of advanced session on Plan Commission. We're looking at doing the same this time, hopefully serving the same great dinner that we had last time. Real recently, in fact, just a couple days ago, there was a court ruling that you all should know about. And the court ruling is essentially a public body in, certainly within the district, but perhaps in the statewide, if business is being conducted and someone who is a board or commission member or a council member is using an electronic device as part of doing that business on the meeting. Let's just say you're texting on the floor, you're sending email messages, Facebooking, whatever it should be, and it's during the proceeding, you're on the floor, and those messages happen to concern city business, then according to the court decision, that electronic device can be subject to the Freedom of Information Act requests. So someone could say, I request that I get a copy of those texts or those emails or whatever it might be. Now, it's just limited to if you're conducting business with that electronic device that concerns public proceedings and it's during one of these a hearing or when the public body is in session. But I thought I would let you know that because, in fact, the case concern the City of Champaign City Council, just right across the Wright Street from us, but has implications statewide. Countryside's second subdivision was approved by the City Council, both the preliminary and final plats. Long-range transportation plan 2040. This is an interesting opportunity to have input on a region-wide transportation plan that really has implications for how tens of millions of dollars are spent over the next few decades for our regional transportation infrastructure. And so the Champaign County Regional Planning Commission and CUATS, who are actually preparing the plan, they very much are seeking public input. They want to get everyone's input on the plan, and in fact, they have what I would call an innovative way of gathering public input. They actually have a bus that used to be an MTD bus, and now it's been wrapped with a long-range transportation plan visual on the outside, and it's a blue bus that goes out to different neighborhoods. It goes out to public events, the farmers market, to the Sweet Corn Festival, to neighborhood nights. So the bus pulls up to events, people can get on, they see displays, and then they can sit at a computer terminal. There's multiple terminals on the bus where people can input on the maps their input, their perceptions, their ideas about transportation of all forms here in Champaign-Urbana. The upcoming events you should know about: July 27th at the Farmers Market, the long-range transportation bus will be there. July 31st at Ambucks Park, and then August 7th at Meadowbrook Park. And those are the updated items I wanted to let you know about.
Thank you, Mr. Myers. We don't have a study session, so we are adjourned.